So hello and welcome back. And today I'm going to be talking about rubrics. And these work particularly well with the items we looked at in the last couple of videos. That is helping you mark written work that the students have submitted and helping you mark project work that the students have done in a Google Doc or a Google Slides or something like that. And the rubrics are used to really speed up the marking, where you don't want to have to go through in detail and look for every single paragraph, every single mistake or every single correction, where you want to give the students a more general overview of how good their work is. They're also very useful for providing guidance to the students, and for that reason it's often good to set the rubric when you set the assignment so that the students can look at the exact criteria that are going to be used to mark them and grade them. But I suspect many of you are asking, what exactly is a rubric? So let me show you. This here is the rubric that we use when we're marking the extended project qualification, the EPQ, for our A-level students. And you can see down the left hand side we've got various different sections or criteria or skills which we're judging. So the first one, known as AO1, Assessment Objective 1, is whether or not the students were able to manage their project. And you can see that for 1 to 3 marks the students have to complete these various objectives. If they want 4 to 6 marks, they've got to complete firstly these, but then also these tasks as well. And if they want nearly full marks, they've got to clearly identify the topic to be investigated or researched. They've got to produce a detailed project plan. And there are a variety of different assessment objectives and the criteria required for each mark, and that is a rubric. So you may remember this essay that I set a couple of videos ago. At the time we didn't set a rubric, but we could have set a rubric relating to this essay. And for my rubric, there are 4 criteria that I'm going to judge. Each of these scored on a scale from 3 to 1 or 0 points, making a grand total of 12. I thought it might be useful to actually show you some of the occasions when I have used a rubric in reality. So for this particular task, the students had to produce handwritten answers that they were submitting to me. Now, rather than marking every single set of questions in detail and giving an exact mark, I decided it'd be quicker to mark the questions using a rubric. And the criteria were down here. So the first category was their mathematical ability. For the more regurgitation-based questions, their factual knowledge, how clear were their written answers, and for independent thinking, where there was a novel question, stretching and challenging them, pushing them beyond the A-level syllabus, were they comfortable with that, or were they unable to think outside the information that was given to them in lessons? So here is one example of a marked paper, and I hope Martha doesn't mind me showing hers. It was a very good set of answers. But here you can see I have used the commenting feature that we looked at last video so that I could show where marks were awarded. And when marking according to a rubric, the rubric appears down the right hand side, and it is literally as easy as you click on the relevant box. If you've forgotten what they are, you can expand them, and it gives you the descriptors if you have put them in for each of the rubrics. So you can see here, excellent clarity of writing, excellent ability to regurgitate factual knowledge, very good mathematical ability, although some marks lost, and extremely good independent thinking. And all of them, the totting up is done automatically to give a grade there. Another place that I have used this is a global warming project that I did with the Year 8s, and again I didn't want to have to go through all the global warming projects for the entirety of Year 8 and have to mark them in detail because that was going to be extremely time consuming. So I produced a substantial rubric here where each section of the project that they were producing was marked from excellent through to poor. The nice thing about the rubrics is you can decide on the weighting of each section. So possible consequences of global warming, very easy to find online, actually fairly straightforward, only worth up to 3 points, while independent research interrogating sources and constructing explanations a much higher, much harder task, certainly at Key Stage 3, up to 5 points. So you can assign the points values as you see fit. And again, if I show you an example, Jess Dainter's group here, a lovely project produced in Google Slides, 4 different people collaborating on this, making a very, very good presentation. You can see the rubric here, and again they have mostly scored maximum marks in almost all categories, with occasionally good. So reference list is ordered with a few novel references, but not all information is easily found. So a rubric like this gives detailed feedback to the student without you as the teacher having to spend hours and hours writing the feedback yourself for each group. So how do we write a rubric? Well, ideally you would assign the rubric when you produce the assignment, but it is possible to add a rubric later. So let me look at this Shakespeare the Chemist assignment that I set previously. Now at the moment there's no rubrics, but I can go back into the instructions and I can edit the task. And down here I can add a rubric. I can create a rubric from scratch, I can reuse a rubric, but you can write yourself a rubric in Google Sheets and then import that. And that might be quicker and easier if you're doing a very detailed rubric. Let's say I want to reuse a rubric. At the moment there are no rubrics in my current class, but I know there's a rubric that I'm interested in the GCSE Shakespeare classroom. And I can click on that, select it, and there is now a rubric assigned to this assignment. Going back to the student work, if I now click on the student work, even though it's already been marked, I can go back and edit it, and now the rubric has appeared. So spelling, punctuation and grammar, I think that is good. Choice of language, I think that is excellent. I've forgotten what these are. So both sides of the argument are discussed. Not really. A good argument is presented, but conclusions is either not stated clear or is not fully supported by the evidence. Yes, I think that is the best grade descriptor there. And factual content, well, that is poor. Student has faithfully replicated some details from taught lessons, but answer lacks sufficient detail. Yes. So I can mark it as follows, and now out of the 12 marks that were available, the student has scored 8. So how do you write a rubric from scratch? So let's create a new assignment. Something like this, and let's add a rubric and create one. You obviously want to use scoring so that the student is given a score. I mean, you may not want to. You may want to turn that off and just give feedback without numbers, but mostly you will want to use scoring. Warning here, there is a glitch. Do not try and sort the order of points ascending. There's a glitch which will not let you do it. For now, unfortunately, you have to have the highest scores on the left, moving down to the lowest scores on the right. It is counterintuitive to me, but unfortunately, at the moment, unless there has been a bug fix very recently, you can only order the points descending. Decide on your first criterion title, describe the criterion, decide on points for a particular criterion. My highest criterion is going to be worth 2 points, level title and the description, something like that. I want to add another a level within this criterion. This will be worth 1 point and 0. Now remember, when you are marking, you will initially only see this information up here. You won't see the descriptions unless you expand the box. These are useful for helping you to decide what the points should be if you don't know the rubric off by heart. But these are just short descriptors that you can use to help you quickly assign the correct level. Let's say I want a second criterion. I would add a criterion down here. And let's say I want this criterion to be slightly higher weighted than the other one. My maximum can be 3 points. Excellent. Something like that. And then save. And we've now got an assignment for the students with a rubric attached that the students will be able to look at before they do the essay to see exactly how they are going to be judged. Here it tells us the maximum number of points available is 5, so I'm going to make sure that that points total is set out of 5 there, so that matches the points available on the rubric, and then I can save that assignment. The final thing I want to show you is, for larger rubrics, how you can write them slightly more easily. And you may remember that when we first selected on rubric, you could either write it from scratch, you could import one you'd already used, or you could import from a Google Sheet. And I have done that previously for the Year 8 Climate Change Project rubric. And this was the large one that had a maximum score of 34 and about 12 different criteria. There is a template which I can provide to you which will make sure that the rubrics are imported correctly, but essentially it looks like this. You've got the title of each criterion. On the next line down, you've got the description of each criterion. On the next line down, you've got the points values available for the criteria. Under each points value, you have got the description of that points value. So 3 points is good, excellent, 2 points is good, 1 point is average, and 0 points is poor. And you have a description in the cell beneath that. And you can copy and paste as many different criteria as you need, as long as it is in this format. And to import it, so I've completed the description, I've attached the file that we need, and now I'm going to add the rubric. Import from Sheets, Year 8 Climate Project, I used it today, add that, and you can see that that spreadsheet has been imported easily into a rubric form with the various different criteria, and it is correctly identified that this will be marked out of 34. So just to save problems, I'm going to set the points value to 34. You can change that later. It's not an issue if you forget, but out of 34. And assign. So hopefully that has shown you that I really do use rubrics to speed up marking for more in-depth homeworks, either that have been handwritten, where you can give a more general overview, or if they are a large document like a project or an essay and you want to give general feedback rather than very, very specific feedback. Hope that was useful.